Okay, got it. All right. Tonight, we take a look at the 10th of Nisan, the 10th day of Nisan. So we're in the book of Joshua. That's the thin one, the thinner one. You got the Chumash, they want the thin one. And we're on page 19. We're up to page 19. Okay, so we know that a lot of excitement is happening as the children of Israel have come to the Jordan. And we learned last week that they were going to take stones from the Jordan and they were going to bring them to Mount Avel and Mount Gerizim, which is by Shechem. Shechem is Nablus in English. And they were going to have the oath over there on the two mountains, and they were going to build an altar with these stones, have some sacrifices, and they were also going to build a monument there upon which they will inscribe the entire, and how many languages? 70 languages, an absolute miracle. And then we'll see what they did with those stones. Did they leave it there? And on the same day that they crossed the Jordan and they're going, now they didn't do it yet. This was like coming attractions. That they were going to cross the Jordan and they were going to go to Mount Avel, Mount Gerizim, and then they were going to go back to Gilgal, as we will see. So this is what we will learn last week. Also about the Kahanim. How did the Kahanim? They were standing the entire time in the Jordan with the ark when all of Israel went by, and they went by slowly. Nobody rushed by, they were walking through. It probably took hours. And the Kahanim just stood there holding the ark. And then we'll see, as we mentioned last week, how the Kahanim, after all of Israel finished crossing the Jordan, how they crossed the Jordan. And we'll see another verse that will show us where our sages see their miraculous crossing of the Jordan. We'll see how that is. Yeshua then takes some stones, and in the Jordan area where the feet of the Kahanim touched the water and it immediately dried, so he made a bit of a monument over there. So now we are going to begin on page 19 with let's start verse 11.
It happened when the entire people had completed crossing that the ark of Hashem and the Kohanim passed in front of the people.
So we noticed last week, what did it just say? The ark of Hashem and the Kohanim crossed the Jordan. It says it passed before the people, went all the way to the front. Well, what does that mean? That means that the people made a highway themselves and let them go in the front. Okay, so now let's continue.
The children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh crossed armed before the children of Israel, as Moshe had spoken to them. About 40,000 armed men of the legion passed before Hashem for the battle, to the plains of Jericho. On that day, Hashem exalted Joshua in the eyes of all Israel, and they revered him as they had revered Moses all the days of his life.
All right, let's take a look at this. What is this about? The children of Reuben and Gad, half the tribe of Manasseh. What is this all about? What is it referring to that Moshe spoke to them? So in our Chumash, the thicker book, let's turn to page 911. 911. Mm-hmm. Chapter 32 in the book of Numbers. And now, Klal Yisrael, we are at the Shittim. We are not far from the Jordan. And this is prior to Moshe's death, obviously. Chapter 32. Marsha, how about you want to read? Oh, do you want to read that in English? Chapter 32.
The children of Reuben and the children of Gad had abundant livestock, very great. They saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, and behold, the place was a place for livestock. The children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and said to Moshe, to Elazar the Kohen, and to the leaders of the assembly, saying, Ataroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrah and Heshbon and Leah,
El Ale, Savam, Navon, Baon.
the land that Hashem smote before the assembly of Israel, if it is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock.
This is on the east bank of the Jordan, okay, not in Israel proper, the east bank of the Jordan. Go ahead, please.
They said, if we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a heritage. Do not bring us across the Jordan.
They maintained that there was, who occupied this land? It was occupied by two great kings with enormous armies, Sichon and Og. They were Emorites. It was their responsibility to protect the land of Canaan, that nobody should enter. On the west side, you had the Mediterranean. And then on the east side, you had the Jordan, and you had these great kings east of the Jordan protected. So we had asked them for permission to go cross their land, that we should be able to enter into the land of Israel. They came with their armies and attacked us. And we didn't suffer one casualty, and they were miraculously defeated. So Reuven and Gad, our commentaries explain, said, look, God, he's fighting our battles. You don't need us. So is it okay if we stay here? Because this land was going to be also annexed to Israel. Would it be all right if we stay here? Okay, continue, please. Moshe.
Moshe said to the children of God and the children of Reuven, shall your brothers go out to battle while you settle here? Why do you dissuade the heart of the children of Israel from crossing to the land that Hashem has given them? This is what your fathers did when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. They went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, and they dissuaded the heart of the children of Israel not to come to the land that Hashem has given them. The wrath of Hashem burned on that day, and he swore, saying, if these men who came up from Egypt from the age of 20 years and above will see the ground that I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, for they have not followed me fully, except for Caleb, son of Jephunneh, the
Kenizzite.
Kenizzite, and Joshua, son of Nun, for they followed Hashem fully. The wrath of Hashem burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years, until the end of the entire generation that did evil in the eyes of Hashem. Behold, you have risen up in place of your fathers, a society of sinful people, to add more to the burning wrath of Hashem against Israel. For if you will turn away from after him, he will again let it rest in the wilderness, and you will destroy this entire people.
Scathing criticism. Moshe was saying 39 years earlier, when we sent spies, they brought back a discouraging report that led to our wandering here for 39 years, until this entire generation of men, not the women, the men, until they perished. And now you're coming and you're going to suggest something that will also dissuade and discourage the rest. You want to follow in their footsteps. So what did they say? Continue, please. Verse 16.
I'm sorry.
16, go ahead.
16. Oh. They approached him and said, pens for the flock shall we build here for our livestock, and cities for our small children. We shall arm ourselves swiftly in the vanguard of the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place, and our small children will dwell in the fortified cities before the inhabitants of the land. We shall not return to our homes until the children of Israel will have inherited, every man his inheritance. For we shall not inherit with them across the Jordan and beyond, for our inheritance has come to us on the east bank of the Jordan.
So give us this land, but we won't settle this land. We'll let our women, our children, they'll stay here. We'll take our livestock, will be here. We will be the vanguards leading Klal Yisrael into the land of Israel. Verse 20.
Moses said to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourselves before Hashem for the battle, and every armed man among you shall cross the Jordan before Hashem until he drives out his enemies before him, and the land shall be conquered before Hashem, and then you shall return. Then you shall be vindicated from Hashem and from Israel, and this land shall be a heritage for you before Hashem. But if you do not do so, behold, you will have sinned to Hashem. Know your sin that will encounter you. Build for yourselves cities for your small children and pens for your flock, and what has come from your mouth shall you do. The children of God and the children of Reuben said to Moshe, saying, your servants shall do as my Lord commands. Our small children, our wives, our livestock, and all our animals will be there in the cities of the Gilead. And your servants shall cross over every armed person of the legion before Hashem to do battle, as my Lord speaks.
This is the dialogue between Moshe and the tribes of Reuven and Gad. There was more property that exceeded the needs of Reuven and Gad, so half the tribe of Manasseh was then selected that they would also have on the east bank. So now we go back to page 19 in the book of Joshua, and we understand what it means when it says the children of Reuven and Gad and half Manasseh, they would go before, they crossed before as Moshe spoke to them. So they were fulfilling their obligation. Now, their obligation was they were going to go as vanguards in battle before God and the children of Israel. They were going to lead in battle and war. Why is it that they have to go in the front when it comes to the crossing of the Jordan? Maybe let them go in the middle or somewhere else. Their commitment was that in battle, we're going to lead. We'll go amongst the people. But here we see that it says that they crossed before the rest of Klal Yisrael. They went in front of them. And it says about 40,000 armed men. There were 40,000 who were there. Now, the men who were selected they were conscripted in the army were from the ages of 20 to 60. If we go back, we're not going to do this now, but if we go back in the portion of Pinchas where it tells us how many men there were, we'll see that in the tribe of Gad, Manasseh, and Reuven, there were 117,000 between the ages of 20 and 60. And yet it says only 40,000 went to battle. What did the other people do? So they crossed the Jordan with everybody, and then they went back. And then they returned. Why did they do that? And what was the whole purpose of them going in the front to lead? So our sages say that the reason why the tribes of Gad and Reuven chose to lead in even the crossing of the Jordan was to demonstrate that there is absolutely nothing to fear. Don't be afraid of the columns of water that are stretching thousands of feet up into the air. Don't be afraid that somehow the water might come crashing down on us. Don't be afraid of anything. There is absolutely nothing to fear. We'll lead. We'll show you. We will boldly go. I'll let you finish it. We will boldly go. In addition, not only is there nothing to fear as far as crossing the Jordan is concerned, but we are absolutely certain there will be a divine victory. And therefore, although there's 117,000 that are suitable for battle, the multitude is unnecessary. 40,000 is enough. And Yeshua agreed. 40,000 is enough. The rest, go back home. If we need you, we'll call you. Go back home. We find later on, elsewhere, I think in the book of Judges, there was a war in which they were told they had like 100,000 ready to go to war. And God said, we don't need that many. Cut it down to 40,000. We don't need that many. Cut it down to 20,000. No, we don't need that many. How many? I think it was like 12,000, something like that. That's it. That's all you need. Don't worry about it. God was saying, but we're fighting against 100,000 people. That's it. 10,000 is more than enough. Don't worry about it. A divine victory. That's what they were demonstrating. Okay? Let us continue. It says in verse 14. Hannah, want to do that again?
On that day, Hashem exalted Joshua in the eyes of all Israel, and they revered him as they had revered Moshe all the days of his life.
Okay, what exactly happened on this day? This day is all happening the 10th of Nisan. So first of all, Yeshua was telling everybody, have our eyes open and see the Kahanim, the ark, Look at the miracle that's taking place. As long as the ark is here in what was the Jordan, we have this open highway. Our success is not going to come from our prowess or military acumen. It's going to come from the divine presence, the ark itself. What is it about the ark? There's something special about the ark. It's the divine presence of God. The nations were gripped and seized with fear because they saw the columns, which I don't think I spelled correctly. That's not how you spell columns. What am I missing? That's correct. Okay. All right. Missing. All right. They saw, well, maybe the column, they didn't see the whole column. They saw the columns of water that were thousands of feet high. It says they saw, everybody in Israel. So not only that, people saw this, even maybe stretching almost as far as India. This thing was thousands of feet high. I don't know if the eye could see that far, but as far as the eye could see, there was this incredible column of water. In addition, remember we learned last week, how come when they crossed the Jordan, nobody attacked them? Because God took the tzira, which they translate as a hornet swarm, even though it means it's some other type of an insect, and it came and it attacked them, shooting at the people some type of blinding poison, a toxin. This was remarkable. Now, we just read on page 930, 913. We just finished reading on 913 in verse 20. I'll read it to you. Moshe said to Reuben and Gad, if you do this thing, if you arm yourselves before Hashem for the battle, if we look very closely at verse 17 on page 913, the tribes of Reuben and Gad said, we will go first, we'll arm ourselves swiftly, and the vanguard of the children of Israel will go before the children of Israel. Moshe changed that. He said, it's wonderful what you're saying. Very praiseworthy, but it's insufficient. Don't go before the children of Israel. Arm yourselves before Hashem. Don't go with the mindset to say that I'm doing this to protect God's beloved children of Israel. Do this and say, I am going before God. Have in mind every step that we take and everything that we're going to do is to be pleasing in the eyes of God. And that's what Moshe told them. And the commentaries say Yeshua is reinforcing that. In addition, let's turn to page 1095. 1095. This is the Parsha of Vayelech. This is the last day of Moshe's life. We want verse 3 through 9. Linda, you want to read that, please? Everybody see it? 1095, verse 3.
Hashem your God, he will cross before you, he will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall possess them. Joshua, you shall cross over before you as Hashem has spoken. Hashem will do to them as he did to Siphon and Og, the king of the Amorite, and their land which he destroyed. And Hashem gave them before you. And you shall do to them according to the entire commandment that I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, and do not be broken before them. For Hashem your God, it is he who goes before you. He will not release you, nor will he forsake you.
Okay, so this is Moshe talking. He tells everybody, I'm going to die today. Don't be afraid, because I haven't been your leader. It's always been God, the divine presence. And it's God who will be before you. God is going to deliver the Canaanites just as he did to Sichon and Og. And Yehoshua will cross over before you. So that means who was at the very front? We know we're going to have the Kahanim. They're going to go in the front. We know Reuven and Gad. And who went before all of them? Yehoshua. He's going to lead. And when Klal Yisrael sees Yehoshua leading, again, they are filled with inspiration, faith, and trust. God has provided a human leader for us. We're not abandoned. There is somebody here. And with this, Klal Yisrael further became filled with reverence, awe, and they would obey Yeshua as they obeyed Moshe. Back in the book of Joshua, in verse 14 that we said, Hashem exalted Yeshua. They revered him as they revered Moshe. Now, why was that? So the commentaries say that Moshe's face was radiant. When he came down from Sinai, let's go to page 515 in the Chumash. 515. Boy, I hope everybody's fingers are working tonight. 515. This is after Moshe came down from Sinai with the 10 commandments. We want to take a look at verse 29 and 30. Linda, you want to continue? Please, 29 and 30 on page 515.
When Moses descended from Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of the testimony in the hand of Moses as he descended from the mountain. Moses did not know that the skin of his face had become radiant when he had spoken to him. Aaron and all the children of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face had become radiant, and they feared to approach him.
His face was glowing. There was like a glow from the face of Moshe Rabbeinu. And now Klal Yisrael saw something similar by Yehoshua. That's what it means back in the book of Yehoshua. They revered Moshe. They revered Yehoshua as they revered Moshe. Although Moshe's radiance was like the sun, Yeshua's radiance was like the moon. But his face was radiant. Now, as we mentioned this, let me just go on a tangent for a little bit. This verse on page 515 says, when Moshe came down, his face had become, the skin of his face was radiant. The Hebrew is kikoran or panav. Or with an ayin means the skin of his face was koran. What does koran mean? Koran can mean something which is outstanding. Matzmiach keren Yeshua. Koran can mean a horn, the horn of an animal, something that protrudes, something that like jumps out. Or it can mean like when I'm bursting with pride. And I was davening every day. One of the prayers is that God should be matzmiach keren Yeshua. The horn, the pride of our salvation should flourish. Meaning, we're asking for the messianic era. The word koran means something that is like bursting forth. Here it means a radiance of the face. The word karen also means a horn. Based on this verse, there were those who erroneously concluded that Jews have horns. Because it says Moshe's face was koran. Now, first of all, it's only referring to Moshe, nobody else. But this is what they saw. They understood this word koran from the word karen means a horn. There must have been horns. And that's why Michelangelo in his Moses, he got a couple little horns over there. That's what it is. Okay? But the face, it means it was radiant. All right, now we go back to page 19. And we're going to do the verse 15. Hannah?
Hashem spoke to Joshua, saying, command the Kohanim, bearers of the ark of testimony, that they should ascend from the Jordan.
Okay, interesting phraseology. Hashem spoke to Joshua. What he should say, like I said, and God spoke to Moshe, tell the children of Israel. Say to the children of Israel. Which means that this is what God is saying. God doesn't tell Yeshua, tell the Kohanim, command them. What does that mean, command them? Who are you to give commandments? God gives commandments, you deliver them. Okay, that's one observation. Second observation, every time it spoke about, let's go back to verse 7 on the top of the page. It says, you shall tell them, they signify the waters of the river were cut off before the ark of the covenant. Until this verse here, verse 16, every time it referred to the ark, it was referred to as the ark of the covenant. Now in verse 16, it's called the ark of testimony. Okay? That's a second observation. Third observation, whenever it spoke about the Jordan, it spoke about our crossing the Jordan. Let's see where it has any particular, let's see, where does it say crossing the Jordan? We went across the Jordan. Verse 11, it happened when the entire people had completing crossing the Jordan. Speaks about our going across the Jordan. And the verse before that, verse 10, the people hastened and crossed. Here, it doesn't say that the Kahanim, bearers of the Ark of the they should cross the Jordan. They should ascend from the Jordan. Our sages note all of these, I won't say difficulties, but strange usage of the phrases. What is it conveying? This is where they see that it's conveying to us something remarkable. Yehoshua is told to command the Kahan. What do you have to command them? What are you telling them? Cross the Jordan. I need a commandment? Everybody else crossed the Jordan. I'm ready to cross the Jordan too. No, command them. You know when you need to command somebody? When you're instructing them to do something which is difficult. What's difficult? We want out. I don't want to stay here. Moshe told them, don't cross the Jordan. Return to the east bank. Everybody now has crossed the Jordan. They're in Israel. Can you imagine that? First time in their lives they have stepped foot in Israel. And here are the Kahanim, the only ones left behind, those holding the ark. And Moshe says, don't cross the Jordan. You go back to the east bank. Command them to do so. That's what they were told. Separate yourselves from the rest of the nation. And this is not presented, so says God, God has commanded me, but God intentionally wants Yehoshua to present it as if this is his own wisdom, not in the name of God, as if it's Yehoshua's instructions, not in the divine name. The Kahanim are going to listen. They go back to the East Bank, and he tells them you're carrying the Ark of Testimony, meaning that this is going to attest to the following miracles. What are the miracles? Well, we know about the miracle of the waters separating, forming the highway, the enormous column. That we know, but there are more miracles to come. We thought we were done. No, the 10th of Nisan is not over yet. There's more to be done. What else was done? Let's take a look. Verse 17.
So Joshua commanded the Kohanim, saying, ascend from the Jordan.
Again, not cross the Jordan, ascend. Go ahead.
It happened when the Kohanim, the bearers of the Ark of the Covenant of Hashem, ascended from the middle of the Jordan, and the soles of the Kohanim's feet were removed to the dry ground. The waters of the Jordan returned to their place and flowed, as they had yesterday and before yesterday, upon all its banks.
Now, you've got a column of water, okay? What's going to happen when that water all of a sudden returns to go back into the Jordan area? It should come crashing down, especially it's so high, crashing down, overflowing, perhaps drowning anyone who was in the near vicinity. And that did not happen. The Ark of the Testimony, the Ark, the presence of God, is going to form again some type of a force in which the waters are going to return and yet not overflow. They're going to come down and they're not going to overflow whatsoever. Come down to their boundaries as if they've been flowing the whole time. Not going to disturb the Kahanim. And then Moshe again, Yeshua again tells them to ascend. What does that mean, ascend? Ascend means to lift up, elevate. He's telling them, you know how you're going to get from the east bank to the west bank of the Jordan? You're going to be elevated by the ark. This is the language that our sages recognize, that they actually elevated, ascended, and flew. They flew over the Jordan. That's the other miracle. that the testimony of the ark of the testimony, flew across. We had a flying ark. That's a nice name for an airline. Flying, something. Okay. All right. This is taking place on the 10th of Nisan. Let's do a little bit more. Okay. So verse 19.
The people ascended from the Jordan on the 10th of the first month and encamped at Gilgal at the eastern end of Jericho.
So it tells us very specifically this is the 10th of the first month, which is Nisan. They're at Gilgal. Where is Gilgal? East of Jericho. So I wish I had a better map, but if you turn to page 247 here in the book of Joshua, 247, they have a couple of maps. Not really what we want, but we'll see something. Okay, on the bottom one, the northern conquest, number 2. So we see the Dead Sea. North of the Dead Sea is Gilgal. You see that? Joshua's camp, Gilgal, and the Jordan River connecting the Dead Sea to the Sea of Galilee. That's Gilgal. To the west of Gilgal, not far, very close, is Jericho. It doesn't show it here, but turn to the page 249, next page. Okay, and there we see on 249 the Dead Sea and Jericho. So Jericho is very close to Gilgal. That's where they camped. All right, now let's go back to page 21. So the verse goes out of its way to tell us that this is all happening on the 10th of Nisan. What is special about the 10th of Nisan? So we learn that the 10th of Nisan is unique because it is the yahrzeit of Miriam. What does that have to do with anything? Because Miriam, in last week's portion, demonstrated not only is she righteous, but she demonstrated her devotion to Klal Yisrael. Miriam, the Talmud tells us, as a young girl of 6 years old, had a vision, a prophecy, that her parents would bring into this world a child who would be chosen by God to deliver the Jewish people from Egypt. And although her parents, when they heard the decree from Paro that any boy that's going to be born was going to be destroyed, so their parents separated. And the Talmud in the tractate Sota says that Miriam said to her father, she said, "Father, your decree is worse than Pharaoh's. Pharaoh was decreeing there shouldn't be any boys. By separating from my mother, there aren't any boys, any girls." He accepted her prophetic wisdom. And indeed, Yocheved was impregnated and had Moshe. Moshe was put in the basket because the Egyptians calculated from the time that she got back to her husband and when perhaps they saw she was pregnant, so they thought we're going to calculate when she had the baby. Moshe was a preemie. Moshe was born after 6 months. And that's why it says they saw the baby was good. What does it mean he was good? Simply, he was healthy, even though he was born in 6 months. And they didn't have any, the units that, we didn't have Dr. Sachs to call in those. So, and Moshe was healthy. He was fine. So they took him when it was time. Now the Egyptians were coming and looking for the baby. So they put him in the basket. They put him by the Nile. And who went to watch? Miriam. And then when Pharaoh's daughter sees a basket and she brings the basket in, she opens, she sees a baby, a Jewish baby crying. Here comes Miriam, this little Jewish girl, going over to the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh. Nobody asked her. With the chutzpah, the audacity, she goes and she comes with recommendations. Does the princess want that I should call a Jewish nurse to nurse the child? Somebody asked you? Who asked her? She went ahead because she realized that it was her mission. She was chosen by God, that she should be the one to see that Moshe should indeed become the one who will deliver Klal Yisrael. And she was willing to martyr herself if necessary. And she did this by the waters. In her merit of the 10th of Nisan on her yahrzeit, we have a miracle of these waters. Okay? It's one thing with the 10th of Nisan. Then there's another remarkable merit of the 10th of Nisan, and that is Shabbos HaGodol. What is Shabbos HaGodol?
The Shabbos before Pesach.
The Shabbos before Pesach we call the Great Shabbos. Why? Why is it called the Great Shabbos? They give a drush on there, but some people say because the women finally get a day and a rest, but the Pesach preparation, the rest on Shabbos, it's a great day. Okay. It's called Shabbos HaGodol. Our sages tell us because when we were in Egypt, we were told that we should take a lamb. We should get a lamb. And that was going to be the Paschal lamb. And we were told to do this 4 days before what would be Pesach. 4 days before. When is the Paschal lamb slaughtered? On the 14th. It's eaten the following night, the 15th, is a Seder. The 14th is when it's slaughtered. We were told 4 days earlier, which would be the 10th, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's when we should take it, on the 10th. And then we have to safeguard it, take care of it, make sure it doesn't develop any blemish, so it should be suitable to be a proper offering and sacrifice. Okay? That means Pesach then was on a Wednesday night. That's what it was in Egypt in the year 2448 from creation. And that means that it was on Shabbos that we were told, go get the lamb. It was on Shabbos. Okay, so therefore, what makes it great? If we think we were told to do something that was almost life-threatening. The lamb was the major deity of the Egyptians. One of the signs, the zodiac signs, is called Aries, referring to the lamb. And they believed that this lamb was the manifestation of Aries that influenced human behavior and determined our destiny. And by our taking this, the Egyptians see, what are the Jews running and taking the land? What are you going to do with it? We told them we're going to take it, safeguard it, and then we're going to slaughter it and eat it. What? Could you imagine if Jews today would be told, we want you to go into a mosque, take the Quran, and when they ask you, what are you going to do with the Quran? You say, we're going to hold on to it a few days and then we're going to destroy it. You're taking your life in your hands. I don't recommend we do that. Okay? It's disrespectful to them and we shouldn't do it. Here we were commanded to do that. And Klal Yisrael did it without any fear. They found within themselves the ability to ascend to a level of trust and faith in God and thereby sanctifying the name of God. We're not concerned with the Egyptians who were very offended by this. There's no question. But we put our faith and our trust in God. And that happened on the Shabbos, which was the 10th of Nisan. And the merit of our faith and trust that we had, we're talking 40 years earlier. This is after 40 years in the desert. 40 years earlier, that faith and trust will be a merit to enable us, also with the merit of Miriam, that the water should divide, we should be able to cross the Jordan safely. Now the question is, why do we need the merit? Why do we need all these merits? I mean, God's presence is here. That's what Reuben and God are telling us. There's nothing to fear. We're going to have a divine victory. We don't need a multitude. God is with us. Moshe told Reuben and God, go before God, don't worry. So what do I have to have all these merits? So here's a very important point our sages note. And that is that God sent the angels. He sent two angels. One was to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah in English. And the other was to rescue Lot, Avraham's nephew. In the merit of Avraham, it would have been a source of great, great distress to Avraham if something happened to Lot. In the merit of Avraham, Lot was going to be rescued, right? And Lot and his wife was told, don't look back. She looked back and she's still there. All right. And yet it says that when the angels came, that Lot urged them to come spend the night with me. Please don't stay here. Spend the night with me. And he brought them to his house and gave them some food and he gave them to eat and everything. And our sages say that in the merit of his welcoming guests, Lot was saved and rescued. What did he need this merit for? He's got the merit of Avraham. The answer is, even if we have merit, there has to be a personal mitzvah that we do to activate that merit. Because Lot engaged in welcoming guests, that made him suitable for the merit of Avraham to function and rescue him. Here too, God's miracles are ready, but we need a merit. We need to have some merit. Why am I suitable? Why should God's miracle happen for me? The answer is because 40 years earlier, we demonstrated such faith and trust, and we had a Miriam who was willing to martyr herself on behalf of all of Klal Yisrael. That's the merit that makes us worthy. Okay? So where did we stay? Okay, we're back in the book of Joshua. We went to Gilgal. Why Gilgal? Tells us we went to Gilgal. Gilgal became our capital. Why is that? Let's take a look. I think we have, let's take a look at the footnote here on page 21, 19. 19. Lynn, do you want to do that? See it on the left-hand side, on the 10th of the first of the month.
On the 10th of the first month, that is the month of Nisan. Although this thrilling event was the first time the nation had set foot on its promised land, no festival or celebration was declared because they had not yet had an opportunity to enjoy it, and there were many wars before they tasted tranquility.
Continue.
At Gilgal. Gilgal was the lodging place mentioned in verse 3. It was chosen as the place for the monument because it served as the capital of the nation for the first 14 years in the land. In later times, too, Gilgal was used as the site of auspicious events. Example, see Judges 2:1 and Samuel 1.
So Gilgal became our capital, and we were there for 14 years. 14 years, okay? So now let's continue. Verse 20. We're up to verse 20. Hannah?
And these 12 stones that they had taken from the Jordan, Joshua erected at Gilgal.
Which 12 stones? We have a whole bunch of stones. We know that Joshua erected stones in the Jordan area. What are these 12 stones? These are the 12 stones that the prominent men, 12 prominent men, were told to carry from the Jordan all the way to Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel, which is by Shechem. Now, how far is Shechem from Gilgal? Let's go back to our maps. Let's see if we can find that in the maps. I mentioned last week that it's like 40 miles. Let's see. I see Jericho, and where is Shechem? I know one of these maps shows us Shechem. Here we go, page 253. 253. If you remember, Gilgal and Jericho were just north of the Dead Sea, close to the Jordan. And you see where Shechem is? West Bank, Shechem. That's where it is. They crossed the Jordan, went all the way to Shechem. They took those stones and they made an altar, sacrifice. They feasted there. And then on those stones, they wrote the entire Torah. And then Joshua took those 12 stones back to Gilgal. They all went back to Gilgal, everything in one day. All of this was taking place in one day. Yeshua took it all by himself. Why? He was leading by example. He was showing that these stones are sacred and precious. Put the Torah on them. These are sacred stones. Bring them back. He did it by himself. These were the stones of Mount Gerizim and Mount Abel. And he made a divine monument back in Gilgal. What does it mean, a divine monument? That it's not our prowess, it's not our ability that is going to bring us victory, it is God. That's a divine monument. And now we have here on the east side, going by the right from the east bank going into Israel. So we had, if somebody sees the Jordan, he had the 12 stones there, a monument. Now, if you cross the Jordan, you go to Gilgal, another 12 stones. Why? What do you have to have two of these things? This was a mission statement. Anybody entering, when you go into a home, you could tell right away before you enter if it's a Jewish home. How? It's got a mezuzah. That's a mission statement. In this abode resides people to whom this parchment inside, which contains the declaration of our faith, Shema Yisrael, is something which is very precious. This is our mission. This is who we are. The same thing. You want to get a haircut? You look for a barber pole. Tells you that inside you'll find a barber. I don't know why I put those two together. Okay? This is Klal Yisrael. This is our mission statement. You want to know what a mission statement is? Monument to God. Monument to God, which has all of the Torah in 70 languages. That's why he did it. Okay, let's conclude, and then we'll take a look at one last thing. Okay, verse 21.
He spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers tomorrow, saying, what are these stones? You should inform your children, saying, Israel crossed this Jordan on dry land. For Hashem your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you crossed, as Hashem your God did to the Sea of Reeds, which he dried up before us until we crossed. So that all the peoples of the earth would know the hand of Hashem, that it is mighty, so that you would fear Hashem, your God, all the days.
Okay, so these monuments are there not just to show what we achieved, but for our children, as we spoke last week. It's all for the children, everything to perpetuate for the coming generations. So now the question that we find our sages ask is 12 stones. What is it about the stones? What about a stone? Okay, 12, why the number 12?
For each tribe.
Trials, okay? But what is it about the stones? Why stones? Well, I guess a stone is something which lasts, right? It lasts. You take a tree, wood, anything, whatever it might be, something we build, it can be destroyed, but a stone is there. But they say it refers to something more. Let's go to page 145 in the Chumash. Parsha of Vayetze.
That
145. This is Jacob when he is fleeing from Esav, and he was sent by his parents that he should go find a wife by his mother, Rivka's brother, Lavan, one of his daughters. So chapter 28, we want to take a look, verse, what did I say, 11 through what? What did I write down? 11 through 18. Is that what I wrote down? Okay. Who wants to do this? Fanny, you want to do it?
He encountered the place and spent the night there because the sun had set. He took from the stones of the place, which he arranged around his head, and lay down in that place.
Tells us he doesn't say here it was 12, but our sages tell us that Yaakov took 12 stones and put it around his head. Okay.
And he dreamt, and behold, a ladder was set earthward, and its top reached heavenward. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, Hashem was standing over him, and he said, I am Hashem, God of Abraham, your father, and God of Isaac. The ground upon which you are lying, to you will I give it, and to your descendants. Your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out powerfully westward, eastward, northward, and southward. And all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you and by your offspring. Behold, I am with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will return you to this soil, For I will not forsake you until I have done what I have spoken about you. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely Hashem is present in this place, and I did not know. And he became frightened and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the abode of God, and this is the gate of the heavens.
Heaven's Gate. That's what it was. Okay. And you know where he was? This was the site that would be the temple in Jerusalem.
At Mount Moriah.
Mount Moriah, correct. Continue, please.
Yaakov arose early in the morning and took the stone that he placed around his head and set it up as a pillar. And he poured oil on its top. And he named that place Bethel. However, Luz was the city's name originally.
Okay. You notice something early? You notice something interesting? In verse 18, Jacob arose and he took the stone that he placed around his head.
Just one.
Just right. Before it said he took stones.
Yeah.
What happened to the stones? So something miraculous happened. And that is the 12 stones, they joined as one. They became one. There was a unity of the stones. And he recognized that this too was a message. When there is unity, then Klal Yisrael, they are omnipotent. Cannot be defeated when we are unified. What unifies us? How do you get two Jews to agree on anything? What unifies us? The only thing that unifies us is our Father in heaven and the Torah that He's given us. We might have different opinions, we might have different understandings, and that's okay, because that's how you take one thing and rub it against the other, and you make it sharper, you make it stronger, that's all right. But as long as we have one focus, if we are focused, then if you have that one focus, we can function as that one stone. Yeshua was taking these stones and he was making them into a monument, meaning he's taking a bunch of different ones and now it's forming one unit. When it says in Hebrew that Israel crossed the Jordan, it says Ovar, which is in singular, to tell us that as we cross the Jordan, remember we said a few weeks ago that Yeshua said as we're crossing the Jordan, have in mind that we are going into the Jordan to fulfill the word and the will of God. And if we don't have this as our focus and goal, the waters might come crashing down upon us. Klal Yisrael had one focus, one goal, one mission, and they were a singular unit as they crossed. That's the symbolism of the stones. Let's go to page 173 in our Chumash. We weren't the first ones to cross this Jordan. We weren't the first ones. After Yaakov returns from Lavan and he's going back to his father, Esav is coming with an army to confront him. Yaakov is very concerned. So what does he do? Let's take a look. Verse 10. Marsha, you want to read verse 10 on page 173?
Then Yaakov said, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Hashem who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I will do good with you. I have been diminished by all the kindnesses and by all the truth that you have done your servant. For with my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps.
With my staff I crossed the Jordan. Yaakov crossed the Jordan. What does it mean he crossed with his staff? So one explanation is that's all he had. He was traveling and he was traveling very light because some of his money was stolen from him. He was traveling, all he had was clothes on his back and his staff. Another interpretation that Rashi tells us is that he put the staff in the water and it formed a path for him. Wow. We weren't the first ones to cross this Jordan, but rather in the merit of Yaakov to teach us that when we have one focus, one mission, we are one entity and unit, there are no obstacles. The water is not an obstacle before us. Now there's a question they ask, and they tell us, let's see, a few minutes, we'll do this. Let's go to page 389. 389. A lot of turning today. We had, what did we eat in the desert? We had food, manna, it fell from heaven. Incredible miracle. So God tells, verse 33. Marsha, you got it? Verse 33.
Moshe said to Aaron, take one jar and put a full omer of mine into it. Place it before Hashem for a safekeeping for your generations. As Hashem had commanded Moshe, Aaron placed it before the ark of testimony for a safekeeping.
So they took some of this mun, put it in a jar, earthenware jar, and they put it in the ark, by the ark of the testimony, in the tabernacle. Wow. I mean, it was something special. It was miraculous. Now let's go to page 829.
So it's still around somewhere?
It is still around somewhere. That is absolutely correct. It was around during the time of Jeremiah. When Jeremiah said to the people, why are you desecrating Shabbat? He said, what do you mean we have to work? You have to work. How are we going to feed ourselves? He took out the jar and he said, look, this is what you ate in the desert. What are you worried about? God will take care. 829. There were those who complained and said, Moshe, you appointed your brother Aaron that he should be the high holy priest. And Moshe said, I didn't do it. It was from God. How do we know? How do we know it was God? So God says, I want the leader of each tribe to take a staff and carve your name on it. Aaron, you carve your name on the staff from the tribe of Levi. Moshe, take them all and bring them in and place them before the ark of the testimony, the ark of the covenant. Tomorrow, take them out. Moshe took them out the next day, and all of the staffs were just plain wood as they were before. The staff in which Aaron had his name, it blossomed. Let's see, what did God say to him? What verse do we want here? 16 through 24. Go ahead, Marsha.
Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel and take from them one staff for each father's house. From all their leaders according to their father's house, 12 staffs. Each man's name shall you inscribe on his staff, and the name of Aaron shall you inscribe on the staff of Levi. For there shall be one staff for the head of their father's house. You shall lay them in the tent of meeting before the testimony, where I meet with you. It shall be that the man whom I shall choose, his staff will blossom. Thus I shall cause to subside from upon me the complaints of the children of Israel, which they complain against you. Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, and all their leaders gave him a staff for each leader, a staff for each leader according to their father's house, 12 staffs. And Aaron's staff was among their staffs. Moshe laid the staffs before Hashem in the tent of the testimony. On the next day, Moshe came to the tent of the testimony, and behold, the staff of Aaron of the house of Levi had blossomed. It brought forth a blossom, sprouted a bud, and almonds ripened. Moshe brought out all the staffs from before Hashem to all the children of Israel. They saw and they took, each man his staff. Hashem said to Moshe, bring back the staff of Aaron before the testimony as a safekeeping, as a sign for rebellious ones. Let their complaints cease from me, that they not die. Moshe did as Hashem had commanded him, so he did.
All right, so we find that there is a jar of mun and there is Aaron's staff that were placed in the tabernacle by the ark of the testimony. How come these stones were not placed in the tabernacle? Why did Joshua, he took these stones upon which the entire Torah was written in 70 languages, an absolute miracle. Why didn't he place them in the tabernacle? Well, God didn't tell him to. That's true. How come? Why not? So they say, number one, there was no miracle with the stones themselves. The man itself was miraculous. Food falling from heaven. The staff of Aaron, it was miraculous. A dry piece of wood all of a sudden starts to blossom. The stone itself, there was no miracle. The miracle was that they were able to get the entire Torah, 70 languages on the stone, but the stone itself didn't have no miracle. Therefore, it was not suitable for the tabernacle. But there's another answer, and that is Yeshua didn't want it. Why not? He did not want to equate himself to Moshe. even though his face was radiant, even though God wanted him to be revered and respected, and he was a prophet, and indeed Israel looked upon him as if he was like Moshe. Yeshua knew, I'm not Moshe. I'm his disciple. Moshe, the miracles of Moshe are worthy of going into the tabernacle, not the miracles of Yeshua. This was a further reflection of the greatness of Yeshua and his humility, which also shows his greatness. All right, we'll stop here. Thank everybody for coming on this cold night.
So the staff of Aaron is not the same staff that they performed the miracles that plagues.
Correct. Now, this will be different. And